Stay standing, please, for a second. Guys, how good was chapel today? So good. I'm going to pray real quick, and then we can have a seat. God, we thank you for today, Lord. I just pray that you speak through me, Lord, a word that you would have spoken. Lord, you just stir up our faith, God, and just reveal the plans and the promises you have for our lives.
Yes, Lord.
Amen.
Amen.
Go ahead and have a seat, guys. Go ahead and have a seat. Cool, so this is still an idea that I'm working through and a thought that I've had for some months now. But I feel like it's a word that I've got from God, and it's not just for one season of life, but it's a day in and day out thing that we need to be able to carry with us. And it's something that's encouraged me. And I hope that what I have, I can concisely share with you the thoughts from my head. I hope they connect to my mouth in the right way. So anyway, saying that, going back to 2011, I was in year 11 of high school, and I was competing in track and field. My event was the 110 hurdles. And the way that it works is competing high school, you have two runners for each event. So it was me and one other guy. The other guy that I competed with was phenomenal. He was a state champion, but he didn't look like it. He looked goofy. He looked a bit awkward. He actually looked like the guy from Twilight. And not the same thing about myself, but I looked a little bit more athletic. I played a couple other sports, so I kind of looked more the part than he did. So we would have a lot of fun going to these events, getting down to the meet, getting down to the bottom, like where all the runners are gathered, and they'd be like, "Oh man, are you Josh?" And I'd be like, "Yeah, I'm Josh." And just the look of fear in their eyes as soon as I said that, because they knew, oh, this guy's a state champion, and I have to compete against him. And then anyway, he would play the part of being me. We would eventually get to the start of the race, and then he would take off and beat all of us, and I would just be left in the dust. So anyway, that's kind of irrelevant to the story I wanted to get to. The event that we were in was the 110 hurdles. And so in the 110 hurdles, you have 10 hurdles, 110 meters apart, 10 meters apart from each hurdle. And you have probably 8 people running with you at the same time. In getting into this event, I hated it. I was horrible at it. I wasn't flexible enough to get over the hurdles, but they needed someone to do it, and so they just threw me into it, basically. My biggest fear in these events were getting down into the starting blocks and then looking ahead 110 meters and seeing hurdle after hurdle after hurdle and not knowing how am I going to get over this without hitting them. And so the meters are probably the hurdles are about a meter high, which is not really convenient for me. And so most of the times, you have a lead leg and a trail leg. My trail leg would hit every hurdle on the way. But there's no penalty for that. And it doesn't really matter if you hit it because the hurdles are built in a way where they rock. So the only problem is it'll slow you down. Now, saying all that to say, these hurdles, very intimidating to look down straight ahead. 110 meters, you couldn't see anything else but these hurdles. So initially getting into the blocks, I would have a lot of fear and wouldn't really know what to do going from there. This makes me think of the story in Joshua, and if you have your Bibles, you can open up to Joshua chapter 5. We're going to go from chapter 5 into chapter 6. But this is where the Israelites have just entered into the land of Canaan. And the first city that they've come up to is the city of Jericho. And most of you would know Jericho had these massive fortified walls on all sides that were basically impenetrable. So starting in Joshua chapter 5, verse 15, it says, "Now when Joshua was near Jericho, he looked up and saw a man standing in front of him with a drawn sword in his hand. Joshua went up to him and asked, 'Are you for us or for our enemies?' 'Neither,' he replied, 'but as commander of the army of the Lord, I have now come.' Then Joshua fell face down on the ground in reverence and asked him, 'What message does my Lord have for his servant?' The commander of the Lord's army replied, 'Take off your sandals, for the place where you're standing is holy.'" And that's a whole nother message in itself, to step out of those things that we create and to step into that holy ground. Ooh. Anyway, going into chapter 6, it says, "Now the gates of Jericho were securely barred because of the Israelites. No one went in and no one came out. Then the Lord said to Joshua, 'See, I have delivered Jericho into your hands, along with its kings and its fighting men.'" So from verse 2, I want to look at that just briefly. And I want you guys to realize something here. The Lord's messenger promises something before any fulfillment, before any action is taken. He says the city has been delivered to you already. They didn't have to do anything. The promise came before any type of action, and the promise came before they could even start to do anything. So Joshua takes the message from the messenger, and I'm just going to summarize here. The messenger basically said, "Here's what I want you to do. I want you to gather all the men, and for 6 days you're going to march around the city. You're going to show up for 6 days early in the morning. You're going to get in formation, and you're going to walk around these walls in complete silence. What you're going to have ahead of you is going to be the Ark of the Covenant. That is what's going to lead you. And you're going to have the priests carrying the ram's horns. But no one is to say a word. You're to march, you're to look directly ahead of you, follow the guy in front of you, and march around these walls. What I want to challenge you guys today with is, from day 1 to 6, they had to show up. Expected.
Right.
Because they didn't know when the walls were going to come down. From days 1 through 6, they had to show up not really knowing what was going to happen. They just had to be obedient in showing up.
Very good.
What I want to ask you is, are we obedient to show up for those first 6 days? Or are we just showing up on day 7? Because see, on day 7, that's when the breakthrough came. But on day 7, they also had to do a lot more than they had done the previous days. Because the instructions were, day 1 through 6, march around 1 lap, and then go home.
Right.
On day 7, you're going to show up, you're going to march 6 times in 1 day. And on that final lap, when you hear the long sound from the trumpet, that's when you're going to give out that war cry. And so Joshua has to go to his men. He has to tell them, like, hey guys, look, here's what we're going to do. Show up here tomorrow, first thing in the morning. We're going to march around the walls. None of us are going to say anything. We're just going to go home. And so I think from my perspective, if I was one of those guys, I'd be like, all right, Joshua's gotten this far. I guess, like, I'll show up tomorrow and just kind of suss it out and see what happens. So maybe day 1 I would show up, and then day 2 I would come back. But by day 3, like, if there was no free coffee or anything, I probably would be at home. I wouldn't want to be there. By day 4, I'm pretty sure probably half the people, like, were saying, like, what's the point of this? Like, nothing's coming out of this. There's no fruit. Like, we're marching around these walls and we're not seeing anything happen. And I think a lot of us can be in that position in our lives where we're constantly walking around these walls and not seeing anything happen. But that doesn't mean that there's not something happening. We're just not seeing it. We're not seeing it yet. And so if you're taking any notes or anything, or if you want a title for this message, I've titled it Day 7 Faith.
Oh, wow.
And so, what are you believing for in your life? What are those promises that God's given you?
Very good.
What are those dreams that you've had?
Very good.
What are those passions that you've stirred up in your own life that you're believing to see come? That those things that you believe that are going to pass, that you're going to see come to fulfillment.
Yeah. So good.
Are you getting caught up walking up to the walls and just staring at the walls? And staring at the wall of anxiety, staring at the wall of fear or depression or anxiety, whatever it could be. Because God didn't call them to say, hey, show up for 6 days, I want you to look at the walls. I just want you to see how massive the walls are. God said, show up, get in formation, march, and what you're going to be looking at is the Ark of the Covenant, which is my spirit. So you're following my spirit. You're not showing up to look at the walls. Yeah. You're not showing up to give glory to Jericho for what they've done.
Right.
You're going to follow behind what I've done, and my spirit is going to lead you around these walls. And I think so many times in life we just get caught up in how big the walls are.
Yeah.
But guys, those walls are temporary. Those walls are not going to last. They can't last. God's promises are going to last. Whatever God has promised you, that is what's going to last.
Amen.
Yeah.
But you have to be faithful to show up for those first 6 days.
Yeah.
You can't show up on day 7 and say, okay, God, I'm here, showed up, like, where's my prize? That's not how it works. God doesn't give based on need. He's going to give based on management. So we have to manage the things He's given us well.
So
we have to
good.
manage the time that He has given us.
Yeah.
And I'm running out of time here, so I'm going to get to my 3 main points. First main point is to show up. I think it was Woody Allen that said 80% of success, maybe 90% of success is just showing up.
Yeah, very good.
And there's so many times where we just don't show up, and you know what? You're never gonna regret showing up.
Yeah.
Whether it's church, whether it's chapel, whether it's class, you're never gonna go home at the end of the day and go, "Oh, I wish I didn't go to chapel today." But you will regret not going to chapel.
Yeah.
You will regret not going to church and not serving that day. So first point, show up. Second point is march. When you show up, you gotta march. You gotta keep moving forward. Just like Margaret said today. Sometimes you just gotta run.
Yeah.
Sometimes you gotta lose sight of the walls that are in front of you, and you gotta get your sight on God and fix that and just run. Keep marching and keep moving forward.
Yeah.
The last point is, when we get to that day 7, when those walls come down, we have to praise, we have to shout, and we have to run towards the prize that God, the promise God has given to us.
Amen.
We can't be passive about it. We can't watch those walls come down and then just sit there. We have to claim what He's given to us, guys.
Yeah. Yes.
And so if you just close your eyes real quick, I'm going to end in prayer. God, we thank you, God, for your word. We thank you for your promises, those dreams, God, that you've given us in our lives. And we just pray that you continue to stir those up, that you continue, God, to just give us the strength to be faithful. Give us the energy we need to show up, Lord, to just keep pounding away, Lord, to be there on day 7, but God, to also be there from day 1 to 6. God, remove any fear or anxiety that takes away God, from those dreams or those promises, God, that you've given to us. Because God, your promises are going to come to pass. And we thank you for that, Lord. Amen.
Amen.
Guys, give it up for Blaine. That was amazing. Who needs some more Day 7 faith? Yeah. I'm going to write that down somewhere. Amazing. So much authority, so much passion, so much resolve, and you're such a natural storyteller as well. So keep speaking up. I just felt like we need to hear from you more.
Yes.
And we would be blessed when you do.